Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of my show with me, William Wallace, and my show, William Wallace for America. Today, I'm sitting in the office of Senator Robert Mills, District number 36. And I'm going to let him explain a little bit about his district and where he's from and things that he's working on in our state, because as you know, the best way to find out what's going on, I think, in our own communities is to start in our legislature, and that's what we're going to let Senator Mills talk about today. Senator Mills, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
William, thanks. Thanks for taking the time to come see us in the bowels of the Capitol and in the battlefields of the first floor upstairs.
Yeah, I like how you say that, because not a lot of people realize, right above us is the chamber, and down here in the basement is where they stick all the senators.
Out of sight and out of mind occasionally.
Sometimes I guess some people might rather that, but if they got up here and got involved, they might see the good work that you guys are doing.
Well, like I say, I'm real fortunate to have an office here. The senators, almost all of us have an office in the basement, and it's a pleasure. I'm surrounded by very good people. I've got access to a lot of help here, and it required a lot of help to get here, and it requires a lot of help to stay here and do our job. So I'm really, really very, very impressed with the people around me, because I'm relatively new to this.
Right. How long? Let's talk about that. When did you get elected?
Well, this is my second session. So calendar year 19, we spent campaigning quite hard in Northwest Louisiana. I'm born and raised in Northwest Louisiana. Campaigned in 19 and got elected that fall, November, in a runoff. And then came down for our first session last year in 2020, which was interrupted, abbreviated, extended several times, and it was, everybody said, well, this isn't normal. And I said, well, I don't know, it's normal to me. This is
exactly
all I've ever seen, and quite honestly, I enjoyed it. We just worked, ate, and slept, and I retired from my business to do this full-time completely and to try to do it well, and so I've got all day to do it, and it's worked out fine. So last year was unusual, a little bit productive, and we did very little harm, and that was the main thing. And so this year's been quite different, and we're still not revved up to normal speed yet, but it's busy, and we're in the throes of it right now. The final 10 days is going to be something.
What did you retire from? And then I'll talk about the 10 days here in a second, because that's a good lead in.
Pretty typical for Northwest Louisiana, very typical for Senate District 36, oil and gas. I was third generation of my family to be in the business. I started out in exploration and production as a petroleum landman, and then did that really for about 20 years, and then continuing with some of the exploration production, I was working for a group that was partially funded by Rock Island Refinery from Indianapolis, Indiana. Mm-hmm. They sold Rock Island, bought a small refinery in Northwest Louisiana in Senate District 36, and I started transitioning over in the last 25 years of my 45-year career was really 90% crude oil refining with a neat, started out as a neat small company and ended up a big neat company. But,
a big neat company, I like that.
Yeah, so had a good time.
I love that. Oil and gas, I think a lot of people don't realize how important it is for our state. They kind of hear about it, but then I don't think that they realize how important oil and gas can be for Louisiana's future. I think there's things going on in the background, which I've talked about in some other episodes, about how important I think the oil and gas is. Not just oil and gas, but they're also in some ways working on renewable energies. Yeah, people don't realize that.
We're down but not out.
Yeah.
And like I said, particularly in the very mature basin like North Louisiana, production is very old, expensive per barrel, per cubic foot, and lower prices like we suffered the last few years have been very, very tough on that production.
Right.
So in this $65 range, we're breathing now. We're not celebrating, but we're breathing again, and hopefully we'll see some traditional vertical drilling come back for some of the traditional reservoirs. But as you mentioned, we're exploring and enjoying the very good success of CO2 flooded fields. You've got the initial production of a field, then you might water flood that field. and then you might CO2 flood that field, as we've done with Delhi in northeast Louisiana, and remarkable results. We've got a huge resource of CO2 in Mississippi at the Jackson Dome, and so we've really got to pay attention. That pipeline connected now, the Jackson Dome is to Delhi Field, and it comes on down into South Mississippi, where several fields, significant fields, have been flooded, and now into Louisiana and East Texas, Southeast Texas. So traditional oil and gas is still kicking. But the alternatives and the electrical generation from natural gas and all the different aspects of how do we survive in a new clean world that involves us in Louisiana. So we're looking at hydrogen is going to be a big piece of this. So we're looking, as are the major companies. The state of Louisiana is looking at. Major companies are talking about it all day, every day. Between wind, solar, et cetera, being a part of our solution. And so all hands on deck. We've got to, Louisiana's got to survive. Our people have to have jobs. And that's why I ran, was to try to protect every job in my district and, when available, promote new jobs in my district. And I came out of the business world. I'll never be rid of it. It's a part of me. And so that's what I do all day, every day.
But what I like that you're telling us, is that you had a lot of years in oil and gas, which I think is really important for Louisiana. You've had a lot of business experience, and now you're retired and you're using all the experience to serve the people of Louisiana, and you're working hard to do it in a capacity that's going to help future generations.
Well, I've been lucky all my life, William, but this was a unique opportunity where actually I was approached by some people to look at the seat. And with a lot of advice, some solid prayer from some great folks. I asked my pastor very early on. I said, I've got this opportunity to run for public office, or do other things in my retirement that would be very productive. I was about to be president of the Committee 100 in Shreveport-Bossier, and it was going to be a full-time job. But my pastor gave me, as usual, good advice. He said, do what would help the most people.
And here you are.
What do you do?
Helping everybody in Louisiana.
Well, you try.
Yeah.
And so, that was the challenge. And with just a remarkable amount of help and participation from just a lot of people, I need to acknowledge, but won't, just to avoid getting them in trouble. Yeah. But I had a lot of help, including one of the very few people, possibly the only state district race ever endorsed by the President of the United States.
Oh, really?
Donald Trump endorsed me.
I love it.
And spoke out in my favor at the Monroe event, and I was on stage. You'll see me there on stage in the Bossier City event.
What I'll do is I'll put a picture of that on the Facebook page when I make this post. I'll get a picture of that.
Like I say, it was a high moment.
Yeah, I bet it was. Absolutely.
But so, like I said, I had a lot of help, and truly, like I say, and you're right, coming out of the business background, and not just oil and gas, all the different related businesses, I feel like I bring a relatively good perspective to process, and I'm surrounded by people with business experience, and not everybody's a lawyer, not everybody's a divorce lawyer, trial lawyer. The guys we talk about a lot are standing on a truck on TV. There's some really smart, sharp men and women that I'm surrounded by. With all professions, and we all contribute a little bit of something, and so I'm glad to throw my
I like how you say that, because it's not calling out a specific industry or what people do. It's finding ways to bring more people together, and using your experience and that philosophy. Let's talk about some of the legislation you're working on for this session right now. That you have your name on, that to help some people.
Well, this was a strange year, being a fiscal only session, so we had a very small menu of things that we could do. Only 5 bills were allowed at the discretion of every legislator, and we had a lot of people call in asking us to carry bills for them, and I brought down an insurance bill for the insurance department. I contributed another bill in insurance. That was one of mine. I had a education bill and a retirement bill, and so I had the plate filled up pretty fast.
Pretty quick, yeah.
And so all of those are of interest to me. When I came here first, the the president of the Senate asked me, well, what committees do you want? And I said, well, I want Judiciary A and Insurance. That was really the two big issues that I ran on down here, and I was with a little negotiation, I was able to get those.
Exactly.
And I guess to balance that out, he also gave me the Retirement Committee and Education, which are both very valuable, but both very time-consuming.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of emotion involved with the Education.
He saw
committee.
that you are a retired person. You might have a little bit more time on your hands.
Well, I tell you, the guys, and this being a fiscal year particularly, the guys that really, men and women that put the time in on this are on the money committees. And the Revenue Fiscal Affairs, those people, they were here till nearly midnight last night. I know that some of the staff was here till 3 a.m.
Oh, wow.
And they're right back here this morning. So it's, particularly in crunch time, it's amazing what people will do here to get the job done. So
I've left out of here many a nights at 9, 10 o'clock at night, after doing some interviews with some representatives, and see employees walking out. And these are the people that are not getting paid overtime. You all aren't getting paid overtime. You guys are basically of course I'll say underpaid, but for a full-time job, it's a part-time job, full-time. Well, they get the idea. They've seen it, we say it before, but to see these people leaving at night. Yeah. It's amazing how late.
It is. Everybody humps it real hard, and but it requires that because you got hard deadlines, and so you just got to do it.
So back to your legislation that you're working on.
Well, like I say, we're moving towards the goal line at this point. My education bill is a very important bill that deals with early childhood education, and actually focused on reading. And what we've got to do in Louisiana, and we know this, is do a better job of getting kids into a learning environment very early. They can do that at home with parents that are informed. Really, very good to do it in an environment where you have a trained teacher. Right. And so my bill, Senate Bill 216, requires that the state of Louisiana train everybody that touches a really 3-year-old up to third grade, kindergarten through third grade. Every teacher, administrator that touches those kids teaches those kids. And so that's when they're learning so much. So my 216 will require the state to train about 16,000 people in the science of reading. That sounds complicated.
It sounds complicated, but there's a science behind it.
There is. So reading is probably the most studied aspect of learning, and so we've really learned a bunch in over time, and put ourselves back to 2013 in the state of Mississippi. Legislators were in the same spot we're in today. The state was at the bottom of the list of reading at fourth grade levels. And they installed the science of reading. They financed it, trained their teachers, installed it, and literally, William, within 6 years, they've moved up from the bottom to 23rd.
Isn't it amazing we can look at other states are doing?
Yeah, and so we talk about Mississippi. They probably talk about us a lot.
Yeah, but they talk about us in the past tense.
Yeah. Well, I'm jealous of them with what they've done with reading, childhood reading, and so.
So you looked at what they did, and you emulated a bill that would help Louisiana off of what they did.
I'm convinced it will. And
that's smart.
So is Cade Brumley, our superintendent, and his whole department. They have bought into early childhood education, full speed ahead. So even though it wasn't, I've been coming to Baton Rouge representing our company, my former company, Calumet, for 25 years, and we talked about education being the solution for 25 years, and we never seemed to quite get it across the goal line. And so we've really, with this administration, with the Cade Brumley in the education superintendent job, we are making great progress, and we're gonna change how we do it, and we're gonna change the outcome of education on these kids. And
I love this idea.
It's not just a few; it's everyone. It's every child.
And that's what I love about, like, when I interview people. Sometimes this is the stuff that you don't hear about being made public. When you watch the news, you don't hear about education, making the news. You hear about the legalization of this or that. You hear about the narrative things, which is why I don't like to do too many narratives on my show, because this is the kind of information we get out there and get people involved on when we're not busy with narratives.
Well, it's talked about in the education arena, but it's not talked about it outside near enough. And if we fail to educate our children, you read about them in the paper. As you do right now, and you hear about them on the news.
Right.
And so to avoid some of the real problems we have with adolescents and young adults, we fix it as a child, and so that's the goal.
I love this. What other are you most passionate about?
Well, like I say, jobs. I would love to think I could help defend my home industry, oil and gas, and I do. I'm also involved in the timber industry and have a lot of compassion for that. I've tried to help our logging companies that have had just a horrible time with the liability insurance. So this hits a couple of my passions.
I know Jack McFarland's on the logging industry too.
Jack's all in.
Yeah.
He's in the business and is specifically, he operates a logging company. He has a fleet of log trucks that go out into the woods in a difficult environment, then come back onto the highway and drive to the mills. We have a lot of small people in that business too. Small businesses, they have, may have one, they may have 14, any type of business, but they're having a horrible time buying liability insurance, which is required to be able to conduct their business. And the rates on an annual basis, the rate for insuring a log truck for somebody that's not a major company might be $13,000 a year up to $35,000 a year per truck. And
you got to get a lot of logs just to pay the insurance note before you can pay the salaries.
We have lost so many people in the business because they couldn't afford to do that. We run people out of the state. They've moved their businesses to Mississippi, Arkansas. Much cheaper to insure your trucks in Arkansas and Mississippi than it is Louisiana. So this is somewhat self-inflicted, but and we got to do a better job of driving and producing and doing the work of logging. But that we've got to do something about this. And so I've got a task force on log truck insurance, agricultural truck insurance, and it's very difficult. It's an unregulated business, so there's things you can't do with it that we were able to do with automobile insurance last year. But we are aware of the problem. It's creating a real pressure on our businesses, and so those are the things that I attack. Small businesses, particularly in my district, like loggers and oil and gas.
So any other legislation that you have, or anything you're passionate about? I know we got to wrap it up in a few minutes. If you heard the bell, there's a little bell that rings, and you got to go in session in a few minutes.
Well, we're always supposed to be somewhere else, but that's a common problem. But even short term, we talk every day about the infrastructure. Our roads, our bridges, and we work on that every day. And even the concept right now of talking about extending taxes to cover and dedicating them to infrastructure, it's under discussion right now. It causes a lot of consternation with a lot of people, but there is no free lunch, and we're trying to see between gas tax, sales tax, how do we finance our infrastructure going forward. We've got to repair thousands and thousands of bridges out there.
Yeah, Louisiana has more roads and bridges than 97% of other states in the country. I guess Texas will outdo us, but California does us. But when you compare how many roads and bridges we have,
and our population density is thin compared to some other states, and so we just don't have as many people paying for those roads as some states.
Can we use some of that COVID money coming in? There's a big, I like to smile because I think that it's a opportunity to use this COVID money for one-time expenses instead of continuing expenses.
The federal government had their own opinion on that.
Okay.
And so, no, to answer your question, but the money coming down as a bulk, American CARES Act and the Rescue Act, were dedicated to income that was lost by cities due to the COVID environment last year. This last big tranche of money is going to be used really only for sewer and water projects. And so, no, just, they all come with strings, but broadband infrastructure is one of those allowables, but sewer and water were some of the big events.
Isn't it amazing? It's almost like the federal government wants you to wants the governments to misuse the money so it can need them for future sources, or I say misuse it, but I mean, of course, sewage and water is a great thing, but it's a lot of money coming in that with a lot of strings, and it limits the use.
Well, and those funds were different from, there's been so many different batches of money that the federal government gave away, and some of it had no strings, just $1,400, for this, and $1,000 a month for that. So anyway, some money came unrestricted, but the big numbers that you're hearing about came down with very specific instructions on how to use it. And so we've given that, we've shared it with our small towns that are going to get some money, and the parishes that are going to get some money. They all know what they can and can't do, and so they've had ample time to look, and there'll be places for it to go.
Well, let's hope that it puts a little bow, on the last year, so to speak, and wrap it up in a way that we can help get us out of where we were and do the right thing, I guess.
Well, like it or not, I mean, I'm very concerned about the federal government printing this much money.
Oh, I am too. Believe me, I am too.
I learned my economics in the 1970s, and it said that we would already be in a horrible inflationary spiral at this point, and so I keep looking every day for that, and it'll happen.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen, but it's been pretty amazing, this economy, how quickly we've rebounded, and how little inflation we've seen with the factors that are out there. So everybody be on point that our grandchildren are going to have to pay this money back.
Exactly, and that's I worry about that immensely. I really do.
Yeah.
Well, Senator, is there anything parting words that you wanna give the listeners? Anything that you want to keep an eye out for?
Well, no. Like I say, everything's moving quickly. It's all about the budget right now, and let's get this done and talk about it after the fact. I don't want to jinx anybody or get anybody in trouble at this point. We're getting very close to ringing the bell on this thing. Let's get over the finish line, then talk about it.
Well, I'm going to follow up with you down the road. I'm gonna go to your district at one point and come up there and see the area. We'll get some pictures up there to share with people in the future. But please keep an eye on this senator. He's doing a great job. I've been listening to other people, what they're saying, watching some things that he's working on. And you go to legis.la.gov. And you can see more about his bills and follow his legislation and follow other legislation and get involved. The best way that we can fix our country is to start in our own communities and start in our own state. And when we have senators like this who's doing good things for the people of Louisiana, I think that we can see that ripple effect and where it starts. Senator, thank you so much.
William, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Good, and you're welcome to come up and see us anytime.
I'm gonna do just that. Everybody else, you know the drill. Share the video. It's gonna be on a podcast at William Wallace for America on any podcast player. And thank you very much for listening. Have a great day.